This is the Wandering Mind.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mark. Today I'm here with Jamie. Hey Jamie, what's up?
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're in the penthouse again.
hmm
Last time because Jake told everyone we're in the penthouse, and then the one with Rachel we were in the linen cupboard again, and now we're in the penthouse again.
Yeah.
So it's
I
looking
couldn't
up.
have Jake beat me. He couldn't be above me.
So we needed to.
I need to be in the penthouse.
It's actually the exact same room. So he was
Mm.
also on this side of the building.
Interesting. I can feel his presence.
So yeah, um, we're basically gonna do the same thing. We're
Mhm.
just gonna have a little conversation. And to start us off, if you just want to introduce yourself in however many words you want to, tell us who you are, what's your life been like, your journey, anything you want to share.
Okay, take it away. So my name is Jamie Lee Shepherd. I'm from Darwin in Australia, which is a pretty small, still a capital city, but a small place in the
Hmm.
Northern Territory. And yeah, I work in New Zealand as a hiking guide. Which is a bit random for me because, like, I, I'm not really like a hiking kind of person.
Hmm.
I just did it for a while, so it'll be funny, and it is funny.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I know you're gonna uncover some really interesting facts here today, Mike. Um, and yeah, I am studying to be a nurse at the moment. I'm at
Hmm.
uni, so I'm here in New Zealand on my uni break. Before that, I studied to be a paramedic.
Yeah.
And apparently I just love to stay in school. Just every day I wake up and take me back to school. Yeah, I've got one more year left, and that'll be a nurse. But yeah, essentially I just live in this hostel, you know, 15 of my nearest and dearest friends. And yeah, I thought I'd jump on Mike's podcast. He's gonna be famous one day.
It will be.
It will be. Yeah.
Hopefully. Touch wood.
Yeah, touching wood.
Um, okay, so I actually learned something new because I
There you
didn't know
go.
you were becoming a nurse,
Mm.
if you can call that. Like you're studying
I'm a
to,
student, I'm a baby nurse.
but I mean, I know that medicine in general, you have to study a long time.
Mm.
Is it kind of the same to become a nurse? Like how long do you have to study?
Yeah, so nursing, to be a nurse from a bachelor degree takes 3 years. But because I did my paramedicine degree, which took 3 years, I'm
Right.
now doing like a master's on the top, which is 2 years. So it's 5 years total, which is a really long time.
Yes.
But yeah, essentially I'll be a paramedic slash nurse in the end. So it should it should all even out.
So obviously, that's kind of a rarity. At
Mm.
least for me, I didn't meet that many paramedics.
Mm.
So I have to ask, like,
Yeah.
what inspired the whole wanting to go into medicine, paramedic, all
Yeah,
that
it's a
stuff?
funny story actually. When I left school, I started studying advertising
Oh,
because I wanted to do something creative and I wanted to get paid for it.
right.
So I did 1 year of advertising and then I realized that it was just soulless. Like, it was it was hellish. Every day, the things that they would teach us, it's just essentially like, you know, manipulate people into spending money that they don't have. And I
Mm.
thought, I really don't want to do that forever. No hate to anybody that works in like marketing or anything, but it just wasn't
But
for me.
from my side, hate to everyone who works in marketing. I feel the same way you do.
Okay,
It's like,
Mike said that on the record, not me.
no, it's I love to work with people. I love everything that has to do with psychology and stuff like that, but in a
Mm,
positive way. That's why I hate sales and marketing like that.
yeah.
Um, but like the fields, obviously not the people. But
Yeah, that's right. Not the people, the
but
profession, the art.
yes.
So yeah, after a year of doing that, I was like, "Ooh, I need to hop off this burning ship."
Mm,
And I just did a complete 180 and I thought, what is something that I could do that isn't soulless and
right.
still get paid for it? And I came up with medicine. That kind of, to me at the time, it seemed like the only field that I could escape this kind of like capitalistic grip of you have to manipulate people in order to make a living. So yeah, that's why I went into paramedicine. I didn't have the scores to be a doctor, so
So
the next step down.
it was just practical like that?
That's it. That was
Mm,
my entire thinking.
right.
Yeah, can
Um,
be a bit fast and loose like that.
no, no, but I mean, so it wasn't like a conscious decision to be a paramedic as well, but if you could have been a doctor, you would have went for that.
Yeah, if I could have been a doctor and it wouldn't have taken me 7 years or whatever it takes,
Yeah, yeah, that's even longer. It's
squillion dollars in debt, then I would
yeah,
have done that. Um,
that's actually an interesting thing as well because since I've been here and like since I travel like a lot of different countries, I always saw like different systems of education.
mm,
Because in Germany, essentially, education is free. So if you study in Germany, you basically have to pay like 200 to 300 euros, which would be like $500 to $600
mm,
per semester, which most of that actually goes into your like your bus ticket. So part of that is that you get like a bus ticket for your whole time there as well, so
oh
you
yeah,
can get around with the public transport and stuff like that. And then it's literally only like $100 that actually go to the institution, $50 or something, which is tax, which the state just gets. But it's basically not a lot of
mm,
money. It's
yeah,
really, really cheap and
as it should be.
makes it
Yeah,
accessible to everyone. So I always find that part interesting how different countries like how their system works.
mm,
And I actually know a little bit about the Australian system already because a friend of mine in Christchurch that I met there, he was from Melbourne, and
mhm.
he told me because he's an engineer, and he told me a little bit about how it works, but he didn't do that on air. So I'm just gonna ask you, how does the like the education system work? Because you do have to pay quite a
Yeah.
substantial amount of money, right?
You
To
do. Like, for example, my paramedicine degree means so there's this thing called HEX debt, which is essentially the government gives you your degree upfront and then you accrue a debt that you will pay back later in life once you start earning a certain amount of money. I think at the moment it's over $55,000 annually. Once you start earning that amount of money, then you start paying back your HEX debt from your salary each year. So essentially, like a regular degree, like my paramedicine degree, cost me 10 grand a year
Mhm.
to study. So now I have a HEX debt of 30 grand.
Right,
Um, but in sectors like nursing, because they're so understaffed,
right.
they have Commonwealth supported places in university. So my master's cost me 8 grand total for the 2 years.
It's quite good.
Which is really good, and also
Yeah.
if I did it in Victoria, it would be free.
Oh.
Um, yeah, but I just didn't do that because I'm just foolish. That's why. I just thought it would be funny to have
Vi-
more debt.
Victoria is where Melbourne's at, right?
That's right, yeah, yeah.
On this.
So, yeah, so they do subsidize things when it gets dire only.
Right.
Um, but yeah, essentially you pay it back in the future. But I get so worked up about it because I just think how ridiculous to have a system where you are discouraged a from being educated in in an economy where people are already struggling day to day, can't buy a house, and then on top of that, you've got a 30 grand debt to pay back for a degree that the country really needs. Like, it's just so backwards, and I think back to my parents, and when they went to university, it was free.
Oh,
Yeah. So that it's
So there
only
was a time that it was actually free in
there was a
Australia.
time, yeah, where it was free, and at the same time, them buying their house would cost like
Yeah,
100 grand, like, or less, and the percentage of their income that was going to rent was so much lower, and like everything was just set up for them to be able to be financially successful. And now it's completely all flipped on its head. And people wonder why, you know, I'm so hesitant to have a real big girl job and buy a house and do all that stuff because I can't afford
it's
it. Like, you know?
it's yeah, it is kind of a well, no, it's not really weird, but it's just the way it is because also, I mean, it's the same with my parents and because I think it was kind of like that all over the world. When our parents were growing up, that was kind of the dream, buy a
Mm.
house, get a job that you work for 800 years, not like 50, 50 or 60
Yeah.
years, before you retire. And back then, like you said, those were all attainable goals.
Mm.
And like everything was set out for society to do these things.
Yeah.
So they encouraged them and they basically made it possible. But then obviously at some point all houses are bought up. Like all
Mm.
property is owned. Like
They are now because, Steve and Joe have their third Airbnb holiday house and like it's everything is just really a mess. And I just think it's frustrating to because this is still the dream, these
right.
days. Like we inherited that dream from our parents, but we didn't inherit the circumstance that allowed it.
True.
Yeah, it's backwards, you know.
I feel like and I don't know if there's a like actual relation between these things, but something that at least in Germany um wasn't very common when my parents were growing up was the amount of travel that people do
Mm.
these days. Like, a lot of younger people, they because it's cheaper to just travel the world for a year than, like get a house, start down payment on your house and stuff like
Yeah, it
that.
is.
So a lot of people, I mean, some people also travel and then they go back and they still have that dream. But I feel like for a lot of people, that dream actually has been replaced. Like,
Mm.
not everyone sees themselves in one country anymore. And maybe I am biased because that's kind of how I feel. But
Mm.
I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends from different countries that feel the same way. And they're kind of more towards a discovering it all and like seeing what's out there in the world rather than this is where I grew up. This is where I want to like leave my legacy
Mm.
and where I want to build my family and house and all of that stuff. So I don't know if that is related.
I think it is. I think it makes a lot of sense because people just rejecting this idea, I suppose. It's like if if I can't have it, then you give it all up. It's like throwing a tantrum. And I can't have this house and this nice like nuclear family lifestyle, so I'll just do the complete opposite. Kind of like me doing my advertising degree in paramedicine. Just a big
Sure.
180. And I think that is why you get people, especially that we meet in this hostel, that have been traveling for 2, 3, 5 years and have no plans to stop. They're just on the run, vagrant lifestyle.
Yeah.
Um, and it's an interesting question, I guess, to think which is more fulfilling. Like, and I guess it's person to person dependent. Who who feels more grounded? I wonder. The people with the house and the dog and the good stable job, or the people that live in Argentina for 2 weeks and then Antarctica the next. And I wonder
I
who's
wish
happier.
I wish I could go to Antarctica.
Mm, yeah. A few people from the guide team now live in Antarctica.
Oh really?
From my last season when I was here, they've moved to Antarctica to work with sled dogs and cook for the researchers and just crazy stuff like that.
Oh wow.
It's really cool.
That
Mm.
that is pretty cool. But to your point, that's a question that I basically asked myself for a long time as well,
Mhm.
because I feel like there is no, I mean, obviously, because we're all different, like everyone is always proclaiming diversity and like we need to be diverse. But then on what levels do we actually want diversity? Because then, oh, we want everyone to think the same. We want everyone kind of to uh, do the same kind of things. That's what education basically is. Just trying to get everyone to do like to streamline
Yeah,
people.
ironing out the wrinkles.
But I mean, obviously everyone's different. So that's something, because when I was younger, I was very like stuck in my way as well. Because for me, the answer was, when I was younger, was always clear. Was like,
Mhm.
how can anyone be happy just staying in one place, having a
Yeah,
house and a family? In my head, that was, you can't have a fulfilled life like that. But
makes sense.
just because I couldn't,
Mm,
just because for me, that life, and I know that for a fact, isn't a fulfilling life.
yeah.
For me, it needs to be the travel, it needs to be um that restlessness that kind
Mhm.
of after 2 3 years max, I need to go to somewhere else, experience something new. And that's how, for me, I live my happiest and fulfilled life.
Mm,
But as I got older, I realized, just because that's the case for me, there's so many people that are super happy just living like back at home. But there's also people, and that's kind of where I got my first opinion from, because a lot of people back in Germany, they always tell me, "Oh, that's so cool, I wish I could just travel." And every time I hear that, I'm kind of like,
mm,
"Well, you can.
you can,
Like,
yeah,
what's holding you back?" But
absolutely.
but there's also people that would never say that because they're just genuinely happy. They're
That's
like,
it.
they don't even have that part where they wanna travel. Maybe they still go on vacation and they still go to exotic places on
Mhm.
vacation. They don't only go to resorts, but they actually go to places and discover them, mix in with the locals, but then they go back to their hometown. They go
Yeah.
back to their house, and like that's what they want.
I suppose there's a certain element of traveling versus vacationing, where in traveling you have to give something up. You have to leave things behind, uproot. There's more on the line when you travel, but when you
Right.
vacation, you have a safety net of you just go back. But yeah, I think it's the same with a lot of people that I sort of went to school with, and um, people that set themselves up. That like, it's a certain balance, right? If you set yourself up too well at home, it's too hard to leave. So you kind of forfeit this idea of being able to travel because there's too much on the line at that point. But if you spend your life transiently in little spots here and there, there's never enough to keep you saying, well, I couldn't go on to the next thing. So it allows this like cascade effect of being able to hop and hop and hop. Which I agree with you is fulfilling, but like you say, person dependent and also stage of life dependent. I think like there's been certainly
True.
times in my life where I've been doing the hop to hop cascade thing, and felt wildly unfulfilled. Just
Mm.
like gravely like, you know, because this is something people don't often talk about with traveling, is it can be quite lonely and it can be
Yeah.
really hard to live that fragmented lifestyle of building up relationships and then a knowledge of a landscape and inserting yourself into a community and then essentially just fracturing that and moving on to
And
something new.
true.
Yeah, that's challenging. And so if you're in a stage of life at that point where you maybe need more stability or yeah, if you're susceptible to being lonely as opposed to just alone, um it can be really unfulfilling too. So yeah, person dependent and also yeah, stage of life dependent. Is that what you would call it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Developmentally dependent.
I
Yeah.
think you put that perfectly. Because that's pretty much my experience as well. But I do have to say that I think that travel, because of exactly that reason, really helps you to find yourself as well, though. Because if you're in that state of life where you don't really know who you are yet
Mhm.
as a person, if you're at home and you have your family, you have your high school friends and all that, and again, that's my opinion, but I feel like it's easier to just hide behind that,
Mhm.
because you have you can hang out with them every day, and you don't feel that loneliness. You don't really feel that there's anything lack. But
Mhm.
if you do travel and you are basically on your own and you feel that unfulfillment, oh, it is because there's something that I didn't really think through yet about myself, or
Yeah.
there's something that I didn't really address yet in myself. And that's something, yeah, when I was younger and I was traveling, and I overall had a great time in Southeast Asia when I was in Indonesia and all that stuff. But looking back now, I realized that I would have enjoyed my time way more if at that point I already knew who I was.
Yeah.
Because there was times of loneliness, there was times of questioning, what are you even doing? Like,
Yeah. It can
like
be
stuff
so
like that.
existential. You wake up in the morning, you don't really have purpose for the day. You know, you can kind of just potter around, and
Yeah.
that it can be like that for weeks. And I remember feeling this really intense sense of like playing something that I would call maybe like pleasure saturation.
Mm.
Whereas like, you know, you wake up every day and you kind of this beautiful sunny day and you drink some cocktails on the beach and you just never really work very hard for anything. And so everything just melts into this one same bland taste. You know? You're never it's like if you were it's like if you were eating every day and you were already pretty full. Like nothing would ever really
Right.
taste that good. Whereas when you travel, like the way that we do at the moment, where you work, or you know, if you hike or
Mm.
something like that, where you work towards something and you experience hardship in a sense,
Yeah.
everything is you're a lot more um open to pleasure and having fun because you've kind of I don't know broken open those pores to absorb the pleasure. If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
And I feel like, because that's kind of because people can come to New Zealand as well, they can come to Australia as well, doing kind of the same thing, doing working holidays as well. But especially younger people, and again, no judgment, because at that point I was the same. But um it is a lot more of that pleasure seeking, a
Mm.
lot more drinking, drugs, all sorts of, like, just indulging in the pleasures that we have in this
Yeah.
world. And um it is object or not objectively, but I mean, it is for them a great time, and they kind of enjoy it in the moment, or at least they tell themselves they do. And then in hindsight, it's like, well, what did I really take away from the year,
Yeah.
And I
Besides a
think
whole bunch of hangover.
exactly. So I feel like that that's kind of what you said. That's kind of the point. It just, like, the good stuff feels a lot more good if there's also not bad, but like hard, difficult
Mm.
stuff
Yeah.
that's happening as well.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing I learned. been all my travels. That was my one take home, is that you kinda gotta work a little bit. You can't just coast. Hedonism doesn't work. That was essentially my learnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've- I mean, I also have a very special relation to work, like whatever you would want to call work, because I also feel like not everyone necessarily is made to work for someone.
Mhm.
But you definitely need to have some kind of passion or calling that you actively work
Mhm.
towards, rather than, because yeah, I think the same. Like every person, if you tell them, okay, I'll give you like $1 million right now,
Mhm.
and you get to lie on this beach in Bali for the rest of your life, they would be very happy at first.
Yeah.
But maybe after a month, maybe if they never had like freedom like that, maybe half a year, but at some point they would get so bored. Like
Mm.
they would be like, well, I can do this every day. I have the money, but I kind of want to do something else.
Yeah.
Like people need something, some kind of purpose
That's right.
that they can actually work toward.
But it's interesting that that purpose is so often manifested in work. It kind of has to be in the way that the society is set up, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't have 100 hours in the day. You have to go to work, so you might as well do your purpose and your work at the same time. That makes sense. But then when you take work out of the equation, it seems like people really flounder because
Well,
you have,
yeah.
how can you spend your day doing something purposeful that doesn't create a profit? It's not something that a lot of people are used to doing. Um, so I think it's really important people have hobbies that don't make money, just to remind yourself that you have a purpose outside of being, you know, um, a vessel for profit.
I actually had a very nice conversation about that with a couple on the Milford track,
Oh,
actually.
yeah, true. You have good
And
chats on the Milky Track, don't you?
they were Australian too,
Ah, nice.
from I think Melbourne even,
Yeah,
or like the surroundings at least.
yeah.
So um, this guy G Dog,
Mm,
that's what he
very
called
Australian
himself.
name.
Um, he and his wife, who sadly I forgot her name. I'm so sorry.
I was
But
just shunned by J-Dog.
yeah, the G Dog just just
Yeah.
stuck with me. Um, we were actually talking about, because they were a little bit of an older couple as well. They
Mm,
had children and all that, and um, she was working. Working. She was volunteering.
mm,
So she basically made this argument how a lot of people, because she could still work. Um, I mean, they don't need it because they're relatively well off. But then she was saying like a lot of people wouldn't really want to volunteer because they always need that gratification for themselves.
mm,
Like they would feel like if they do something without getting money, that wouldn't feel like they were really doing something meaningful. So that was her argument,
yeah.
and that's why a lot of people um, would want to work rather than just volunteer and do good things.
Mm,
I mean, obviously, it is a different question if you need money. Like,
mm,
if you need to support yourself, obviously, if you do some kind of value, you would want to get reimbursed for that. But just that question in general is like, yeah, you can just volunteer and kind of have your purpose without being validated by some
mhm,
kind of payment or um because that's, I think, one of the other things is like humans always love to be validated. Like, how many people really do good things and then, I mean, people do, but it's like if I do something good and then don't go and tell everyone about it, you know? It's like, it's still a good thing. If you do something good,
Yeah.
no one needs to hear about it.
But
But
that's a really classic argument of, people say there's no such thing as altruism. And
yeah.
I tend to agree with it, and I love having this fight at parties because people hate when you say that. But I was having this fight, sorry, I won't call it a fight, we'll call it a discussion
Right.
when I was at the pub a couple of weeks ago with some people in Darwin. And I was saying, there's no such thing as altruism because essentially, if you kill a mosquito,
Mm.
that's not altruistic because that's another life form trying to feed its babies, you know? And if you were a true altruist, you would just sit there and you would let it have your blood and you would deal with the itch because that means that it gets to live on. And um, people always disagree with that because people hate mosquitoes. But
True.
I mean, that's the essence of it, right? And also when I talk about like pests and invasive species, like on the
Mm.
Milford Track. You've got ferrets, toads, feral cats, whatever, that are killing the native bird life. But I always make the argument, why do you get to play God in deciding just because this one animal is a little bit better at natural selection than the other one? Why do you step in and decide that that animal dies because it's so good at living, you know? It's that's not altruism. That's selective to
But
your needs and your wants to see beautiful native bird. And I agree, I don't want the birds to die either. But again, there's no such thing as altruism.
yeah. But that's a really good example of, I guess one argument could be that some of these pests might at some point have been introduced by humans, so we already like
Mm.
played God in the first place, and now
Yeah,
we can
that's true.
do it again. But in general, like wherever human, yeah, I really don't understand that. And obviously, it's always to it's there's always value for us, for the
Mm.
humans, right? In everything where we kind of regulate nature, it is because we feel like nature needs to be in this way because it serves us.
Yeah, that's right. And
And
that's where it always comes back to you get served in the end of any good action that you do. Whether that even be just for your own personal satisfaction, that's still a reward.
yeah,
So that's why there will never be a day where somebody does a good deed purely just for the good of it.
that's actually like if we step away from the nature thing,
Mm.
that's something that I actually do think about though, because I would love to think that there are people though that do
Yeah.
that, you
Sorry,
know?
I do sound very pessimistic when I say that. Like, I do believe people are good and want to do good, but I think that there's always a,
But I mean,
you know
it's a fair point
mm,
because we are all human, so it's kind of like you you think about this thing and you're like, oh yeah, I should do this because it's a good thing. And as soon as you think that, it's basically already
mm.
making you feel better. You know, it's
Yeah,
not
that's it.
it's not like you're saying, oh yeah, I don't know, I'll share my lunch with the person on the street. No, you think I'm share this my lunch with the person on the street because it's the right thing to do, and that already gave you some kind of value in thinking that.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true.
it should just be. Well, I mean, it should. Like, I'm not saying that's how it should be, but the only way it would be really altruistic is if it's an automatic thing. You know, it's
Mm,
just like, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be,
yeah.
and not having to think, oh yeah, I think I should do it because it's a nice thing. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
it's a
mean,
hard one.
the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that as well, because both parties win in that situation. You feel good, the other
True.
person feel good. It's great. I just the only argument is when people say, altruism is a
Yeah,
concept. It's just not. I don't think. But I would love someone to prove me wrong.
but no,
I'm
but
open to optimism.
but in the end, like you said as well, like it doesn't really change the outcomes. So
That's right.
the person if I don't immediately go yell on the street, see what I did, then, like the person will never know how you feel inside and what you actually like, what triggered the action. Like
Yeah.
they will never know your thoughts, and they will be happy about.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean yeah, it doesn't change the outcome, but so that is kind of the question: is it important then why we do it?
Mm.
If it's still benefiting everyone,
Yeah, I guess it
it's,
doesn't really matter
but
whether
it
it's
is
altruistic or
something
not.
something that I also always think about. It's like, I mean, that's something that I could think about for days. Is like, why do humans do what they do? Like
Mm.
in general, like
Yeah, that's a broad topic. We had another
exactly.
5 hours on this podcast, we could probably get to the bottom.
But just trying to think how to reel us back in because
Mm.
we're
Yeah,
just
we've floated out to space here.
we went into like a big. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I like these kind of conversations, but
How do we get some gravity?
oh, I actually got a good transition because for someone who doesn't believe in altruism,
Yeah.
you chose her medicine, which
Yeah.
is a thing that helps a lot of people.
That's true.
So,
That is true.
I mean, that must have been one of the, because you kind of said, oh, I want something um, where it's not soulless, where I can
Mm.
earn money. So obviously, the intention is to go into some field where you can actually have a good impact on people, right?
That's true. Yeah. That is what I want out of it. Um, but I think again it's for my own um satisfaction. I want to feel like I come home at the end of the day and I've done something really important for somebody else. And I want to be
Right.
trained in a way that I can make decisions that, affect people's lives and their livelihood in a big way. Um, and I also just love like the knowledge that you get out of medicine. It's so interesting the way the biology works.
Right.
It's really fun to have in your brain. So yeah, again, not an altruistic choice, I think. It's like yeah, it was kind of like a stick it to the it was 2 parts. It was stick it to the man of being angry at capitalism and manipulation and all those horrible things, and also, you know, lift up the man,
Right.
as in, like, help thy neighbor, uh, love thy neighbor.
So, um, I suppose you're studying all this back in Australia, right?
In Darwin,
Back
yeah.
in Darwin, yeah.
Mm.
So, um, is that kind of the long term goal as well to live there, like do it there, practice it in Darwin?
I don't know, Mike. That's a big question. That's a big layered question.
Kinda is.
Yeah, where I'm gonna end up is an interesting point that I think about often. Because there was a point where I was the same as what we were talking about earlier, where I didn't wanna be anywhere for a long period of time.
Right.
But the more because I left Darwin for ages, I've gone for like 10 years, and then I traveled for 2.5 years, and now I've only just kind of gone back and settled, and now I've left
Mm.
again to go to New Zealand. So
Right.
you can say I have a chronically jiggling leg when it comes to staying places. But I really love Darwin, and that's why I kept coming back to it. Um, and I think I do want to end up there probably and nurse and help the community and all of that jazz. But the reason I chose to do nursing over paramedicine was because you can do these short stints. You can do contract work where you maybe
Mm.
go to like quite a remote location and live there for 3 months
Right.
and then move on to the next. And yeah, I will probably do that a little bit. Um, but I mean, at the same time, I've kind of really been enjoying being stable when I've lived in Darwin for the past because I've gone back for 10 months and stayed put and studied and all of that. I've been a good
Right.
girl. Um, and I've really liked being stationary, which is crazy. I think I just wore myself out with all of the traveling and loved the concept of being able to build a group of friends that I will be able to see consistently. And yeah, just to have like a fridge that's mine and like, you know, a bed that's always mine and art on the walls and that kind of thing. I really,
Mm.
really liked it. So I do definitely see myself spending a long period of time in Darwin post studying. I think I'd probably still need to get some short contracts out of the system. Halt the jiggling leg.
um, well, I just feel like since you brought some pessimism with your anti-altruism speech,
Yeah.
I could also no, I just want to share my experience
Yeah, please.
because for me, that's how I felt a long time in Portugal. You know, I was kind of seeing, oh, this is a great place to live. I had a great job. You know, I liked all my colleagues and
Where were you living?
in Lisbon, in
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 Lisbon.
the capital.
Cool city.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Sick
nice.
city.
Have you been?
Yeah.
Oh,
In my little one of my stints like back.
yeah, I definitely. Because when you mentioned again that you were traveling, I was like,
Mm.
why did you just brush over that? We definitely need to get into that because that's one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, we'll go on. Tell me
Um,
about Lisbon life.
but yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It was just like the people there, like the local people were so loving, and then obviously there's so many international people. It's such an international city, and the vibes are just like always good. And that was kind of for me, also because before, like obviously I was growing up in my parents' house and all that stuff, but then there like all the places I've been since, like the longest was like 2 or 3 years that I stayed in a
Mhm.
place. And then in Lisbon, I think it wasn't was I always say 5 years because it's like a nice number, but it's like 3.5 years that
Yeah.
I stayed there in total. And um yeah, basically I had that feeling of,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's nice, you know, you have a group of friends, it's a really, really nice city. But then it just hit me at some point. I was like, you you wanted to travel because that's the thing as well. Like originally after my studies, I wanted to travel
Mhm.
and I just didn't because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I had this whole plan of doing a world travel, like April 20, actually. That was when it all was supposed to start.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so that kind of was always in my head. And then I was, yeah, now the COVID thing is gone. You're still in Lisbon, you know? And I just decided, yeah, it's time to travel again. And just while I'm young, still see a bit more things. So
I think you would go back to it.
it's possible.
Mm.
It's one of the places where I would definitely consider staying for a longer time. But like right now, while I'm sitting here, I can honestly tell you, like settling down isn't in my thoughts at all.
Mm.
Like all the things I'm thinking about what I'll be doing in the future, settling down isn't even on any level in my brain.
So
But
interesting.
at some point, it might as well be like I'm not close to that thing. I'm just saying like right now, it really doesn't play any
Yeah.
role in anything that I think about. So yeah, basically, I just wanted to tell you, enjoy the stability. Maybe at some point
Oh,
there will be a voice again that will
maybe.
drag you away.
It's interesting though. Like I had a really similar experience to you of thinking at one point that I did never want to settle down. I was
Mm,
on the run,
right.
you know, because you just have so much to do in such a short period of 80, 90 years, whatever you're going to get. There's so many things that you need to see while you're still able-bodied and useful. Um, but I think what really changed for me, honestly, is just like having a boyfriend. That
Mm,
was what I kind of got snagged when I was like doing my run around thing. I had a couple of months in Darwin and yeah, just like fell in love. So how embarrassing. And
happens in life.
but then something about that just changed like I felt like the world wasn't so I didn't need all these things. I didn't need to be going this place and that place and the next place. Like I just was really content at, you know, this one little place, like it was my home. And yeah, and then everything just flipped and I kind of had to think, oh my gosh, my whole life ethos was to be running everywhere.
Mm.
Um and yeah, and then it just completely changed. And it it's still something I'm grappling with and still I guess why I do short stints like this where I go to New Zealand and work for 4 months or whatever. Because I still have that voice in my head that's like, you need to see something. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm just so happy to just have a cup of tea at home, which is crazy.
No,
Crazy change.
it makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah.
But when you just said running is one thing that I remember because before I came to New Zealand, when I quit my job in Portugal, I actually spent Christmas and New Year's last year in Germany
Oh, that's
because
true.
I knew, okay, I was going to go to New Zealand, but I wasn't because I would, yeah, I just didn't want to do that,
Mm.
go directly from Portugal. So it was like, yeah, I'm coming home for Christmas,
Mm.
see my family, my friends, and uh, basically, I told them all that I quit the job, but I also told them I probably go to South America because that was the original plan.
Mm.
But then I opted for New Zealand because it's just easier with the working holiday visa,
Mm.
getting work, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll still do South America after Australia because now
Okay.
I'm going to Australia, do all that.
Yeah.
Um, so my friends didn't really know what was happening. They just knew that I quit my job and that I'm back in Germany for now.
Mm.
So basically, one of the first conversations was like, "Yeah, so what's the plan?" And then I told them, "Oh yeah, actually, it's New Zealand." Because when I was in Germany, I already knew.
Yeah.
I made the choice like 2 days before I went to Germany. It was pretty spontaneous. That's how a lot of my choices got made. And then one of my friend, shout out to Tony, he's actually listening to these podcasts every once in a while.
Oh,
So
don't
maybe,
tell me, doing. Hi, Tony.
so maybe, uh, and he was just, but he was saying it also in a very loving way. He was like, "Well, what are you running from, Mike?" And
Yeah.
I honestly looked into his eyes and honestly answered him. I'm like, yeah, I was running away from a lot of things a couple of years ago when I was traveling, like when
Mm.
I was doing all my things, but now I'm running towards something. I really
That's
feel that way. I really
yeah.
feel like Portugal was so important for me as well
Or
to find myself even more and like know that's why probably if I would have done the world travel 4 years ago,
yeah.
I wouldn't have gotten the same thing out of it that I do now.
Right.
So after the whole Portugal thing, I really felt like I know who I am. So now I can go and basically discover the world
Mm.
as me. So that's what I told him. And yeah, it wasn't a lie. It's like I'm running towards something. I just want to experience more, I want to, and that's how I define it. Again, if you're listening to this and you feel like experiencing more is also running away, that's good. That's your definition, but that's how I see it. I see
Yeah.
it as running towards something kind
Mm.
of.
Chasing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Not running from. I think that's a good mindset for sure. And I do think it comes from a place of it I think it's a really classic psychological phenomenon where when you feel safe and comfortable, you have the power to leave and explore. It's something that I remember learning it in like year 10 psych class when
Mm,
you have a secure attachment style with your parents, then toddlers are more likely to go and be curious about their world and, have a look at how this thing works and that bit
right.
works. But if they've got a really anxious attachment style, they don't have time to go and be curious because they're too busy worrying about whether or not they love,
Mm,
you know? So I think, yeah, it's like when you have experiences like you did in Portugal where you feel really secure in yourself and how you present yourself to the world, then you are so much it's like having a like an anchor to come back to. Like you have this tether attached to you and you can go and explore everywhere and feel that you can be safe to come back to where you feel secure and happy. Um, whereas when you're untethered, that's when it, it can get quite scary. And you don't have
Yeah.
any fun and you don't really learn anything.
And again, I always, I mean, told this to my friends as well, and I think I've said it on the podcast a couple of times as well. It is something that I really admire as well, and that when they are happy, and I know that they truly are, it's so beautiful because we still have our friend group from high school, you know,
Mm.
like 10, 15 people, and now they, except for me and another guy who was kind of like me, who went to the Netherlands and now he's in New York. Like he's a
Mm.
finance person, so he's living in New York
Oh,
City now,
wow.
which is pretty
In New
cool.
York.
I still need to visit him at some point as well. So apart from us two, they all live in Munich now
Mm.
because like we were like from rural cities around Munich, but
Right.
they all moved to Munich, all live there now, you know, see each other weekly, like do stuff.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Like it's really cool to have that community, like, and just building something and being there with your friends. I just because obviously that's a question they ask me every time, like,
Yeah.
when are you joining us? And it's just right now not on my list,
Yeah.
even though I can acknowledge it being a cool thing and it being like super nice. It's just it's just not on my list.
Yeah, like that's too much to see, man. Do you think ever in the very future when you're 70, let's say, are you in Munich?
Well, today I would probably would say no because I would see myself more in Lisbon than I would see myself in Munich.
Yeah, interesting.
But then while I'm saying this, like, obviously when I'm 70, my friends will probably still be in Munich.
Mhm.
And the people that I met in Portugal that were all lovely people probably won't be in Lisbon anymore
That
just
is true.
because it's Lisbon isn't their home either, right? They're all like traveling people as well and like
The
have
toll you
similar.
pay for transient.
So Lisbon, I will probably never have like friends that stay in Lisbon, but I will have friends that stay in Munich
Mm.
forever. So 70 is so far away.
Mm. Say that now.
Yeah, 40 years, like, can go like this.
Yeah.
Um, yes, but I'll use the transition here. You said so many things to see.
Mm.
So I do want to know,
Mm.
what did you see? Like, how you said 10 years you weren't in Darwin.
Yeah.
So where have you been?
So 10 years in Melbourne, I
Mm.
spent. My mum took me to Melbourne because she didn't want me to go to high school in Darwin, which is funny. Because I guess the stigma around Darwin is, you know, if you go to high school in Darwin, you just smoke a lot of weed and
Mm,
don't do a lot of learning,
right.
which isn't true, I don't think. But mum just had the idea, so she took me to Melbourne. I went to a private girls' school,
Mm,
which was a huge turnaround from the school I was at in Darwin. Yeah, and so I went there and I had a great time. I'm really grateful that she took me and like I got the big city girl experience.
mm,
And I stayed there. I went to university. Um, I was really settled. Like, yeah, I had a partner we were together for 8 years, from when I was maybe 15 until I was 23.
that's a long time.
Long time. Tell me about it.
It's an
And
important time as well, from 15
yeah,
to 23.
totally. You do all of your frontal lobe development together.
Yeah.
But also crazy, I think, to date somebody when you're 15 and feel like you would be the same person when you're 23. There's just no way.
Right.
I mean, no hate to high school sweethearts, but that's just
No, but it's,
kind
yeah,
of how I feel.
I know it's,
But yeah, and I had this itch that I needed to travel for so long because my dad was a huge traveler and he did like
mm,
the whole world when he was in his 20s.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'd seen all the photos and heard all the stories, and I just was like, "I need to do that. That's so cool." Um, so yeah, when I'd finished my degree, and I was like, "I am out of here. Let's go."
Mm,
And my partner at the time didn't want to travel, so
mm.
I was kind of like, this is so important to me that if you don't come, it's just gonna have to be how it is. Like, if I don't go, that was like a death to me. Like, I just needed
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I just needed that experience. So, yeah, I left, when I was 23, and I moved back to Darwin briefly just to kind of make some money before I
Mm.
headed off. So I drove my car up to Darwin. Me and my best friend did this, road trip along the East Coast that
Mm.
was just so much fun. Like, just two girlies. We were, yeah, 23. I was just single. I was
Right.
like, the world was literally our oyster. We were at Shining Pearls. It was so fun. And yeah, got up to Darwin. I worked for 3 months, and I lived with my dad there, and made some money, and then I went to Europe
Right.
and just, yeah, floated around, had no idea what I was doing. Just was like, just rocked up and thought, right, like, this will fix everything. And then I got there and I was like, oh shit, I need to figure out something to actually do while I'm here.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'm here. I'll just, I'm traveling. What does that mean? What does the day to day of a traveler entail? I
Mhm.
had not a clue. So I did a lot of drinking and drugs, and it's like, maybe this is what it is. And it wasn't. That was where I got the pleasure saturation thing from.
Yeah.
Um, so then I decided I was gonna settle a little bit, and I, worked at a hostel in Granada in Spain.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did like what you do. I was the night girl.
Nice.
Yeah, la mujer con llaves en la noche is the lady with keys in the night. So yeah, I worked there, for 2.5 months,
Right.
and felt oodles better, incomparably better to have just a place to put my 2 feet down, and to not have every day just be trying to get as drunk as possible with
Yeah.
people from all over the world. And yeah, had a really great experience in Granada, met some beautiful people, had some really great in-depth chat, saw some landscape, learnt some Spanish. It was really great. And then I went from there to Portugal,
Right.
and I went to Ericeira.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's outside of Lisbon, right? It's like an
It's
hour.
yeah, it's like an hour, 1.5. Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
it's a little nice surfing town.
that's it, yeah, and I really liked it there. So much fun, met great people, tried my best to surf, didn't really surf. Met these 2 German dudes that were just so funny, just the biggest goofy goober guys ever.
That sounds like an oxymoron.
I know, right? That's what I thought. The Germans are supposed to be very serious,
Exactly. We
um,
don't have humor.
but they wasn't like, they were so funny. They were these surfy guys, and they kinda took me around with them in their car and watched me half drown, half surf while they went and just did these amazing, like, barrels, whatever. But it was a fun relationship that we had, and then I was like, "I'm done. I'm gonna go home, back to Darwin, have a little rest." So I, like, was in Ericeira, and I needed to get to the Lisbon airport the next day. So I
Mm.
decided I wore this note around my neck that said, "Driving to Lisbon tomorrow? Let's talk." And I went and did just went to a whole bunch of pubs and just kinda sat there and pointed to the sign.
Right.
Finally, this no another pair of Germans, so many Germans everywhere.
Yeah,
Guys love to
especially in
travel.
Portugal. Yeah,
Yeah, especially in Portugal.
but
Um,
but no, in general,
oh, and
Germans are everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
you love to get out of that place.
we do.
Yeah. But anyway, these 2 really nice German guys came up and were like, "We're driving to Lisbon tomorrow." So, yeah, they came pick me up in their van. We had some beers in the car. We had just a really grand drive, and it was great. They went out of their way, actually. They went like 40 minutes out of their way,
Oh, sure.
because they were staying on the other side from the airport. But it was so lovely, It was really like such a great human experience to
Yeah.
be. Yeah, and they didn't speak great English, but we tried our best. They were playing a banging playlist, and so we kinda just jammed out the whole time doing beers.
Nice.
And then, yeah, so I went back to Darwin. I worked for another month, and then I had that at the time, I'd sign myself up to be a hiking guide for
Mm,
my first season. So I spent
right.
a month in Darwin and then I came straight to Queenstown to start the job. Um, Again, having really never hiked before. Like, I'd done maybe one multi-day hike in my entire life
Mm,
and hated it. And
right.
I whinged, my God. Yeah, the whole time I was like, when is it over?
Mm.
But for some reason, I just thought, wouldn't that just be so funny about the hiking guide? Um, so yeah, I came across and I kind of half expected that a lot of people would be in the same boat as me, just be kind of doing it as a backpacker, like a backpacker as a funny job. But absolutely was not the case.
A lot of them, they love it, right?
Oh my God, I got here and they were like, hiking is my life. Like, what are you doing on your day off? Hiking.
Right.
Yeah. And we're at the dinner table and they're like, talking about moss. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so out of my depth. Yeah.
So what's your favorite bird?
That was the topic of conversation. I was like, fuck. But anyway, it was actually a really fantastic experience. And, as much shit as I hang on people who are obsessed with hiking, they are fantastic people,
Yeah.
really down to earth and open. And yeah, it was actually just a really great catalyst for me, just like you say in Portugal, like finding myself
Right.
and just feeling really confident and happy being outdoors every day. And like even the customers that I walked with, I met some really interesting people. And I would always ask old couples how they met. And that was
Mm.
like so adorable. Just that it's always like at a swing dancing competition or or like he was a sailor on a boat and I was on with my girlfriends or like just really cute things
That's
like that. Um no Tinder.
I was about to say, like, these stories are, like, dying out as well.
Mm.
I mean, obviously, the sailor one, I don't know.
Yeah, that could still happen, like
But, yeah, I feel like these stories are well, but maybe not. Maybe I'm
mm,
just thinking too pessimistic, but it feels like because our whole world feels so digital
mm,
and just, it makes you believe that these connections and these meetings in the real world just don't happen as often anymore.
yeah.
But it might not actually be the case.
I do think that's the case though. Quite often
Yeah,
when
right?
you ask people how they met, Hinge or Tinder or
Mm,
whatever it is. Um which is fine. It's objectively that's fine. It's just there's
yeah.
no drama, there's no romance. Like I want the narrative more than anything else.
Yeah.
I want to go, no. And like, oh, you know.
Like I whacked my backpack into his face on the airport. Did you hear Rachel's story? Like how she met her partner?
No.
I mean, I'm kind of telling her story, but
Yeah, that's
since
okay.
since
She's
her
not here.
her podcast came out last week, so it's a good continuation.
Does she tell the story in the podcast?
Yes. Well, so it's going to be next week, but when your podcast will be released. So now I did an Inception kind of thing.
Oh, no.
So for us next week, but when this will be released and everyone listens to it, it'll be last week.
Gotcha. Tune
Uh,
into last week, everyone.
exactly. Go back to the future past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, no, so she had that story how they met in Japan and they were working for the same place, but they didn't know because they
Mm.
just both arrived in Japan and she had like this huge luggage thing, like a big, I think, snowboard thing that you wear, but it's also a huge luggage thing.
Yeah.
And she just like grabbed it off and put it on herself.
Yeah.
And then she hit a guy and,
Oh.
she was like, oh, and that's how they met.
Ah.
And he was like, yeah, no worries. Where you going? And then they kind of figured out they go to the same place and went off from there. So
See, that's beautiful. That's drama. That's what I want.
yeah, right.
So funny. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I did. I did that I worked here for 6 months and I did this job, and then I went to Mexico with a group of
Oh,
friends. And we yeah, just had a great time. Drank a whole bunch of beers. Went to some cenotes. Um, and yeah, did that for a month, and then I went back to Darwin again. such a consistent theme of me going back and back to Darwin.
but not for a very long time.
Very long. See, that's the kind of chickling leg thing.
L- Like, let me ask you though, like when you made it from Portugal, you said, I have to go back to Darwin.
Mm.
And you said you've only been there for a month. Like, did you intend to stay there longer and then you kind of felt compelled to leave again? Or did you say, okay, I'm going back to Darwin to figure out what I'm doing?
Yeah, it was kind of like a leapfrog kind of thing,
Mm.
a point to jump off. I'd already planned to go and work in New Zealand at the time. I just went back to sort of like go
Right,
for a month
right.
before I kept running again. Um, but this time after Mexico, when I went back to Darwin, the intention was to stay
Mm.
um, for a while, and then I was like, no, how about I go to Southeast Asia?
Right.
So yeah, and then I went to Southeast Asia for like 3 months
Oh,
with
cool.
some friends, and yeah, had a really really great time there. And then after Southeast Asia, I was like, I am just done. Like,
Nice.
spent over it. Couldn't stand another hostel. Couldn't,
Mm.
have another broken English conversation. I just
Right.
was done. Um, so yeah, and then I actually went back to Melbourne for like 3 months.
Mm.
Um, because I just really missed my friends, and I thought
Right.
I want to spend some time with them. And I felt really disconnected from their lives because I'd been doing all these things and I'd missed people's birthdays and I hadn't checked in with them. And I just was like, I just need, these people are really important to me in my life. And I want to make sure that I've spent all this time with random strangers overseas. And I want to make sure that I spend equal time with people that I really love and cherish. So yeah, I just went back to Melbourne for 3 months, and then sort of in that time, the boy that I'd met on one of my leapfrog adventures, came to Melbourne to visit, and that's when we decided, like, let's seal the deal, boyfriend, girlfriend, let's be serious.
Right.
So he was kind of the reason why I was like, right, I'm gonna go back to Darwin and I'm gonna chillax, gonna be properly a big girl and stay there for as long as I can, and that's what I did for the past 10 months. Um,
Which
then
is as long as you could.
it's just and that was as long as I possibly could until I said and decided to come to New Zealand just for a short stint, just to kinda get it out of my system.
Right.
But being here, I get homesick, which is something I haven't experienced in years.
It is super interesting to hear your story because because obviously I love to travel and it's kind of been my life as well. Um, and yet just to see that transition. So you'll be going back in February, it was, right?
Yeah.
So right now, as you're sitting here,
Mm.
you feel like you have got it out of your system. Like there's the travel part was there, was valuable,
Mhm.
and like that chapter's kind of over.
It does feel like that. Yeah, now, which is scary to say out loud.
No, I realize it sounds very definitive, but
Yeah.
it's like sometimes that's how people like to talk. They
Mm.
don't like vague stuff. They like they like
Is it
definitive.
this way or is it that way? Which is never really the case. But,
Life's never black and white like that.
that's right. It's always one big shade of gray.
Exactly.
But yeah, I do feel like that now. I feel like I can see myself doing some vacation in the future,
Yeah.
but the whole uproot my life thing, I think that's having a long pause at the very least.
Mm, Let me just ask you a hypothetical question then,
Mm.
because I mean, it sounds like you figured out what works for you. So I'm not trying to mess with that at all.
Okay, here
But
we go.
I'm just saying, do you think because you talked about having a partner and just being content with that place that you know that you're familiar with, and again, it makes a lot of sense. I'm also asking for myself. Do you think it's possible to also find someone that you can travel with? You know,
Mm,
having that person and having that connection, but being traveling rather than staying at one point.
yeah, I think definitely. And I think we probably will travel in the future. But I think an interesting paradox of meeting people that falling in love with people that are traveling at the same time is that people that travel love traveling more than anything else. More than they're ever gonna love you, you know?
Yeah,
Um, and you can meet somebody and very rarely is there a circumstance where two people are in the exact same slipstreams where they can be going in the same direction for the same period of time with the same budget.
right.
And just logistically, I think, you know, two travelers to fall in love and stay in love and to build a stable, fulfilling life together is probably pretty rare. I think way more likely would it be kind of the way that it's happened for me, where you meet somebody in a stable period
Mm,
and then you build up to leave and travel together
right.
after a long time. But I mean, totally it could happen for sure. But when you travel, I suppose, what's the likelihood that you've got enough time spent together that you can make the decision that you'll go forward with, you know,
No,
changing your direction for each other? Yeah.
I definitely agree. It's not kind of, yeah, you're not really go into relationships with that mindset while you're
Mm,
traveling anyway. Like
mm,
it's not really ever there. It's like it's always like a valuable experience. You know, it's a good experience, but it's yeah, from my experiences as well, it's never something that probably both people they don't intend it to be long term anyway. So
yeah.
it's like
If they view it as temporary, even if maybe it's not. Maybe if the connection is such that it should be non-temporary,
right,
both people are going to treat it temporary anyway, and then kind of fan the flame out.
just because of the circumstances.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
mm, I think.
That got sad.
Yeah, that's it. I talk about everything today. Love,
There-
altruism,
That's
opinion.
crazy. So now when Jenna asks what we talked about, we can say everything.
Yeah, everything under the sun.
Um, I kind of don't want to end on that sad note though.
Okay, let's pick it up a little.
What's a good positive question I could ask? Um, well, actually, you know something. Uh, Mexico,
Yeah.
because I told you I love South America, but
Mm,
I probably also go to Mexico because I now have some friends in Mexico as well.
no.
So, how's Mexico? What did you love about Mexico?
Oh, Mexico was such a delicious treat for me. It was just so I'd come off the back end, I suppose, of traveling by myself for a really long time. And then
Right.
it was a group of my really good friends in Melbourne all got together and said, "We're going to Mexico. Let's do it."
Hmm.
And it was, yeah, it was so much fun to just have a little crew of people that know you really well,
Right.
as opposed to all the time trying to explain your story and work out how you are around people. It was just,
Hmm.
yeah, it just felt, I don't know, it felt like a school camp. Like it was so fun. And Mexico itself is beautiful. It's just this big playground of um, jungle and ocean and people that are lovely.
Hmm.
And I had my broken Spanish I'd picked up from Granada, and
Right.
that made me the appointed tour guide leader. Everywhere we go, walking into a restaurant saying, "Hola, una mesa para tres," or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, that made me feel like I really liked that I had a skill that I'd picked up traveling that I could
True.
use elsewhere. It made me feel like, wow, I'm a
It,
real travel girl. But yeah, it was really cool. We did the surf thing. We did the scooter thing.
hmm.
We drank 100 million beers. Um,
Did you get to see some cool pyramids?
yeah, we saw the Chichen Itza.
Is
ruins.
that the
Yeah, that's the
like
Mike's
the
doing some
step
hand distance just so everyone listening knows. Kind of like a
like a step video?
yeah, a pyramid with steps.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw that, which was really cool. All the Aztec history and
Mm,
yeah, that was fun. Um, then we we went to like Puerto Escondido, which is on the south coast, like a beach
right,
town.
right.
Um, and so much fun. We just
Mhm.
partied like rock stars.
Nice.
And there was a hostel that we booked, and we booked it for 2 nights. And me and one of my really good, very degenerate friends, Kian, we just didn't spend one minute in the actual bed of the hostel.
Oh, wow.
It was, I think we went, yeah, 40 or 52 hours of just zero sleep, just straight vibes, zero sleep.
I would die.
I did.
Probably.
And then that night after our big Puerto Escondido expedition,
Mm,
we had a bus. It was like a 13-hour bus ride to get to San Jose del Pacifico, which is like a mountain town.
right.
Um, and it was this bus ride, just these whipping twists and turns around the mountain. And the whole time I was sitting there, head in my hands. Like I'd had zero sleep, so I was just hallucinating, you know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, at every corner we turned, it was like a monster coming out, or
right,
there was a truck
right.
hitting us head on collision. And it was just the most humbling 13 hours of my life.
Sounds like
It was horrific, but yeah. We got to San Jose del Pacifico, beautiful tiny little town where they don't have cars, they only have kind of the buggy tuk-tuk kind of things. Do you
yeah,
know the one? Yeah.
yeah.
And it was just something out of a fairy tale. Like, it was so quaint and sweet, and we stayed in this beautiful big ranch and had like all these puppies on it, and yeah, we just kind of drank coffee and ate tacos and
Nice.
just just loved each other's stick. That's what it was all about. That was really special. Traveling with friends after traveling alone is a special experience. But traveling with friends and never traveling alone, I think, it, um, doesn't have the same gravity.
Yeah.
Self learning. I didn't do any learning this trip. I just
No, but I think it's nice to just enjoy because yeah, like the trips I have with my friends, they're just relaxing.
Mm,
You know, it's just
yeah, it
like
was
they're there to
vacation.
to enjoy a country together, you know, like lie on the beach, you
Mm,
know, just enjoy the beautifulness, beautiful, the
yeah,
beauty.
the beautifulness,
Just made up a word
the
right there.
finality of it all.
Exactly. Uh, but yeah, like you said, solo travel and my opinion, but I think your opinion as well, is important. It's important to do solo travel,
Mm,
but it's also for the mind and for your mental health. It's also very nice to travel with friends and
that's right.
just like
Have a little sugary treat every now and again, you know? Part of a balanced diet.
exactly. Well, I feel like that's a good way to end that.
I think that's happy hour,
That's a
isn't it?
good positive
Yeah,
note.
yeah.
Um, well, thank you, Jamie. Thank you
Hey,
for taking the time,
thank you,
and
Mike. Thanks for waltzing down the corridors of my brain. So, been fun.
it has been fun.
Yeah,
And it was all topics that I was very passionate about. So
good.
it was really cool. Um, yeah. So with that, I'll say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.